If this story interested you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and tell us what city you're watching us from. Let's continue. Megan Carter never imagined that the address scribbled on a crumpled piece of paper inside her purse could change her life forever. It was a Monday morning in New York City, the sky heavy with grey clouds that threatened rain at any moment, and she clutched the strap of her backpack tightly as she observed the imposing gate of the mansion before her. The neighborhood was one of the most exclusive on the Upper East Side, filled with old trees and high walls that hid sumptuous houses. Megan took a deep breath, smoothed the hair tied back in a simple bun, and pressed the intercom. The voice that answered was curt, without any trace of cordiality, just an automatic "come in," followed by the click of the gate slowly opening. Megan crossed the impeccably manicured garden, where red and white roses formed perfect flower beds around a stone fountain. Everything there seemed to be straight out of a design magazine. But there was something about the silence of the place that bothered her. It wasn't a peaceful silence. It was a heavy, dense silence, as if the entire house were holding its breath. The main door opened before Megan could even ring the bell. A tall woman with white hair pulled into a rigid bun, wearing an impeccable beige tailored suit, stared her up and down with eyes that seemed to evaluate every detail. Eleanor Adams, the child's grandmother. Megan immediately recognized that erect posture, the thin lips pressed into a severe line, the expression that did not allow for a smile. "Good morning," Megan said, extending her hand kindly. "I'm Megan Carter, the hired nanny." Eleanor completely ignored the gesture of greeting. She turned and began to walk through the entrance hall, expecting Megan to follow her. "Come in, close the door behind you, and follow me. We have no time to waste." Megan obeyed, feeling the weight of that first contact. The inside of the house was even more imposing than the outside. Crystal chandeliers hung from the high ceiling, the marble floor shone like a mirror, and old paintings decorated walls covered in imported wallpaper. Everything was luxurious but cold. There were no family photos on the shelves, no toys scattered about, no laughter echoing. Through the hallways, only silence and coldness. Eleanor stopped in the living room and turned to Megan with an impassive expression. "I will make it clear from the start what your duties and your limits are. You were hired to take care of the ground floor, only the ground floor. Your responsibility is to keep this room tidy, prepare light snacks in case Sophia comes down, put away any toys she leaves here, and ensure that everything is in order. Do you understand?" Megan blinked, confused. "Yes, but what about the girl? Won't I be taking care of her directly?" Eleanor's expression hardened even more. "Sophia spends most of her time on the second floor, under my exclusive supervision. She is going through a delicate time and needs discipline, routine, and structure, things that only I can provide. Her father is too busy with work and is not in the emotional state to care for her properly right now. Therefore, you are not, under any circumstances, to go up to the second floor. Do not disturb. Do not interfere, and do not try to approach the girl without my authorization. Is that clear?" Megan felt a tightness in her chest. There was something profoundly wrong with those words. "But I was hired to be a nanny," she insisted gently. "Wouldn't it be more natural for me to spend time with Sophia, play with her, help with her daily activities?" Eleanor crossed her arms, her posture becoming even more rigid. "You were hired to do what I am telling you. If you don't agree with the rules, the door is right there. There are dozens of people who need a job. You are not irreplaceable." The silence that followed was cutting. Megan felt the humiliation rise to her face, but she swallowed her pride. She needed this job. She needed it desperately. The last few months had been difficult, with bills piling up, rent overdue, and the constant feeling of being on the brink of financial collapse. This opportunity, as strange as it was, represented a decent salary, a chance to get back on her feet. "Understood," Megan murmured, lowering her eyes. "I'll follow the rules." "Good." Eleanor gave a minimal smile, devoid of any warmth. "I'm going upstairs now. Start with the living room. There are magazines scattered about, cushions out of place, and the coffee table needs to be polished. Afterward, prepare some fresh orange juice and leave it in the refrigerator. If you need me, you don't. Figure it out on your own." And with those words, Eleanor ascended the marble staircase with firm, precise steps, disappearing into the second-floor hallway. Megan was left alone in the oppressive silence of that gigantic house. She looked around, took a deep breath, and decided to start her work. Perhaps, with time, things would make more sense. Perhaps Eleanor was just an overly strict woman trying to protect her granddaughter in her own way. Perhaps. The first few hours dragged on. In a mechanical routine, Megan organized the magazines, arranged the velvet cushions on the sofas, polished the coffee table until her own reflection seemed clearer. She went to the kitchen, a huge state-of-the-art kitchen with high-end appliances, and prepared the orange juice as instructed. Everything was impeccable but empty. There was no music, no conversation, no life. It was then, while folding a wool blanket over the sofa, that Megan heard it. A muffled sound, almost imperceptible, coming from the floor above. A cry. A low, restrained cry, but laden with a pain that pierced through the walls and reached her like a silent scream. Megan stopped immediately, her heart pounding. She looked at the staircase, then at the front door, and back at the staircase. Do not go up. Do not interfere. Do not disturb. Eleanor's words echoed in her mind like an unquestionable command. But that cry wasn't normal. It wasn't the tantrum of a spoiled child. It was the cry of someone suffering in silence, of someone who felt completely alone. Megan fought with herself for long seconds. Reason told her to stay where she was, to respect the rules, not to risk her job, on the very first day. But something stronger, something visceral and impossible to ignore, pulled her upward. It was empathy. It was urgency. It was the absolute certainty that a child needed help. Without a second thought, Megan dropped the blanket on the sofa and walked to the staircase. She went up step by step, her heart beating faster and faster, her hands sweating coldly. The second-floor hallway was wide and dark, with closed doors on both sides. The crying was coming from one of them. Megan followed the sound, treading softly so as not to make a noise, until she approached a slightly ajar door at the end of the hall. She pushed the door open gently and saw it. A huge bathroom, tiled in white marble with mirrors on all sides. And there, huddled on the cold floor between the toilet and the wall, was a small, overly thin girl, her skin pale and her face hidden between her knees. She wore old, faded pajamas that seemed too big for her fragile body. Her brown hair was tangled, uncared for, and she trembled slightly as she sobbed quietly. Megan felt her chest tighten so hard she could barely breathe. Sophia. That was Sophia, the 8-year-old girl who was supposed to be under the loving care of her grandmother, but who in reality seemed abandoned, forgotten, cast aside as if she didn't matter. Sophia, Megan called softly, kneeling slowly on the floor. I'm Megan. I came here to help you. What happened, sweetie? The girl slowly lifted her face. Her eyes were red and swollen from crying. Her cheek had a mark from being pressed against her knee, and there was an empty, tired, defeated look in her eyes. Please, Sophia whispered, her voice weak and hoarse. Don't tell. Grandma, you saw me like this, please. She'll get mad. She always gets mad. Megan felt tears burn in her own eyes. I won't tell a soul, I promise. But tell me what's happening. Are you hurt? Are you sick? Sophia shook her head slowly. No. I just wish Mom would come back. I miss her so much. So much. And Grandma says I can't cry, that I have to be strong, that crying is for weak children. But I can't. I can't stop missing her. And then Sophia broke down in sobs again, clinging to Megan with desperate strength. Megan hugged her with all the affection she could muster, stroking the girl's tangled hair, whispering words of comfort. It's okay to cry, Sophia. It's okay to miss her. Your mother was an important person to you, and it's normal for you to miss her. There's nothing wrong with you. As she held Sophia in her arms, Megan noticed other details that alarmed her even more. The girl was visibly underweight. The bones in her arms were too prominent, and there were deep, dark circles under her red eyes. She looked like a child who didn't sleep properly, who didn't eat properly, who wasn't being cared for as she should be. And worse, she seemed like a child who was being emotionally neglected, isolated, left to suffer alone, while the entire house pretended everything was fine. Sophia, Are you eating properly? Megan asked carefully. Are you sleeping well? Is your grandma taking care of you? The girl hesitated, biting her lower lip. She says I need to learn to control myself, that I eat when I deserve it, that I sleep when I finish my chores, but I get so hungry and so tired. Megan felt anger rise in her throat. This was neglect. This was abusive emotional control. This was wrong on every possible level. I'm going to talk to your father, Megan promised firmly. He needs to know what's happening here. No! Sophia clung to Megan in desperation. Don't talk to Dad, he won't believe it. He never believes me, he only trusts Grandma. After Mum was gone, he changed. He became distant. He doesn't look at me anymore. He just stays in his office working. And Grandma says it's my fault. That if I were a better girl, he would love me again. The words cut Megan like razors. This child was being emotionally manipulated, convinced that she was to blame for her father's pain, isolated and controlled by a woman who used grief as an excuse to impose cruel discipline. And the worst part, the father, Gregory, was so lost in his own pain that he couldn't see his daughter's suffering right under his own roof. Megan hugged Sophia tighter. I'm going to help you, she whispered against the girl's hair. I promise I'll help you. You're not alone anymore. And it was at that exact moment, in that fragile instant of connection and promise, that the bathroom door was thrown open violently. Eleanor was there, standing in the doorway, her face contorted in controlled fury, her eyes fixed on Megan. What do you think you're doing here? Megan quickly stood up, instinctively placing herself between Eleanor and Sophia. She was crying. I heard her and came to help. She's suffering, Mrs. Adams. She needs care, affection, attention, not isolation. Eleanor took 2 steps into the bathroom, her posture threatening. I gave you clear orders. You were not supposed to be here. You disobeyed. You invaded a space that is not yours. And now you're trying to teach me how to care for my own granddaughter. I'm not trying to teach you anything, Megan replied, her voice trembling slightly. I'm just saying this girl needs help. Look at her. She's underweight. She's exhausted. She's emotionally destroyed. This isn't care. This is... Be careful what you say, Eleanor interrupted, her voice low and dangerous. You know nothing about this family, nothing about what we've been through, nothing about what's necessary to keep this child under control after everything that's happened. You're a stranger, a temporary employee who has no right to opine on matters you don't understand. Sophia began to cry again, huddled in the corner of the bathroom, and Megan felt her heart break. I just want to help, she insisted, her voice firmer now. If you won't take proper care of her, then someone needs to. It was the fatal mistake. The words came out before Megan could measure the consequences, and Eleanor smiled. But it wasn't a smile of joy. It was a cold, calculating smile, the smile of someone who had just found the perfect weapon. Do you really think you can come here on your first day of work, challenge my orders, and then accuse me of not caring for my granddaughter? Eleanor crossed her arms, tilting her head slightly. You've made a grave mistake, Megan. A mistake that will have consequences. Megan felt her blood run cold. What are you implying? Eleanor didn't answer immediately. She just watched Megan with those cold, calculating eyes, as if she were assembling a meticulous plan in her own mind. Then she turned to Sophia. Go to your room. Now. Sophia obeyed without question, passing by Megan with her eyes downcast, and disappeared down the hallway. Eleanor waited until the bedroom door closed before turning her attention back to Megan. You will go downstairs now and wait in the living room. I'm going to take care of a few things up here, and then we will discuss your future in this house. Megan hesitated, but she had no choice. She went down the stairs with trembling legs, her heart pounding, her mind trying to process what had just happened. She returned to the living room and stood there, unable to sit, unable to relax. She knew something terrible was about to happen. She could feel it in the air, in the way Eleanor had looked at her, in the coldness of that smile. Half an hour passed, then an hour. Megan looked at the clock on the wall, the hands moving too slowly, and the silence of the house suffocated her. When she finally heard footsteps coming down the stairs, she mentally prepared for the confrontation, but what she saw left her completely bewildered. Eleanor was coming down the stairs in a hurry, her face transfigured into theatrical panic, holding her cell phone to her ear. "Gregory, you need to come home now, immediately. Something terrible has happened to—" "Sophia, that woman, that nanny you hired. She did something horrible." Megan was paralyzed. "What? What are you talking about?" Eleanor hung up the phone and turned to Megan, and in that moment, Megan saw it. She saw the pure evil. She saw the cold manipulation. She saw the trap closing around her. "You broke into my granddaughter's room," Eleanor accused in a loud, theatrical voice. "You scared her, hurt her emotionally, yelled at her. Sophia is in a state of shock. She's traumatized. And it's all your fault." "That's not true." Megan took a step forward, desperate. "I was only trying to comfort her. I was only trying to help." "Liar." Eleanor pointed a finger at Megan, her eyes shining with cruel satisfaction. "You disobeyed my orders, invaded a private space, and now you're trying to justify yourself with lies. But it won't work. Gregory is on his way home now, and when he gets here, you're going to pay for everything you've done." Megan felt the floor disappear from under her feet. No, it couldn't be true. It couldn't be happening. But it was. Eleanor had created a false narrative, had planted the seed of doubt, and was now calmly waiting for Gregory's arrival to completely destroy Megan's life. And worst of all, Megan had no proof, no witnesses, nothing but her own word against the word of a powerful, influential woman who was absolutely convinced she could do whatever she wanted without consequences. The trap was set, and Megan, unknowingly, had walked right into it. The next 20 minutes were the longest of Megan's life. She remained in the living room, standing, her trembling hands clasped in front of her, while Eleanor paced back and forth with a disturbing calmness. The older woman seemed to be mentally rehearsing every word she would say, every gesture she would make, every detail of the false narrative she was about to present as absolute truth. Every so often, she would cast a calculating glance at Megan, as if measuring the impact her lies would cause. Megan tried to speak several times. She tried to explain, to argue, to defend herself even before the formal accusation happened. But Eleanor simply raised her hand in a silencing gesture, a minimal smile on her lips, and resumed her pacing. It was silent psychological torture, and Megan knew it. Eleanor was in absolute control of the situation, and she was savoring every second of that power. When the front door finally burst open, Megan felt her heart leap violently in her chest. Gregory Adams entered like a hurricane, his dark hair disheveled, his tie loosened, the jacket of his suit thrown carelessly over his shoulder. He had red, sunken eyes, deep, dark circles that betrayed sleepless nights, and an expression of panic mixed with rage that made Megan instinctively take a step back. "What happened?" Gregory dropped his jacket on the sofa and turned immediately to Eleanor, completely ignoring Megan's presence. "Where's Sophia? What did this woman do to my daughter?" Eleanor brought a hand to her chest in a theatrical gesture of distress. "She's in her room, in a state of shock." "Gregory, I tried to prevent it. I gave this young woman very clear instructions not to go to the second floor, not to interfere, not to approach the girl. But she disobeyed. She went upstairs, invaded Sophia's space, and frightened her terribly. The girl is terrified, son, completely terrified." Gregory finally turned to Megan, and the look he gave her was like a punch to the stomach. It was a look full of hatred, accusation, and instant judgment. Megan felt her legs weaken. "That's not true," she managed to say, her voice coming out weaker than she would have liked. "Mr. Adams, please listen to me. I didn't do anything wrong. I just heard your daughter crying and went to help. She was alone, suffering, needing someone. I didn't scare her, I comforted her." Gregory took 2 steps toward Megan, his fists clenched, his jaw tight. "You didn't have permission to go upstairs. You didn't have permission to touch my daughter. You were hired with specific rules and you broke them on your first day of work. And now you have the audacity to stand here and try to justify yourself?" "I'm not justifying myself." Megan felt tears start to burn in her eyes, but fought to keep them in check. "I'm telling the truth. Your daughter needs help, Mr. Adams. She's being emotionally neglected. She's too thin, too tired, suffering too much. I saw it. I talked to her. She told me things you need to know. Gregory turned pale. Neglected. He repeated the word as if it were a personal insult. My mother takes care of Sophia with absolute dedication. My mother sacrificed her own life to be here every day, taking care of my daughter after we lost my wife. And you, a stranger who just arrived, have the audacity to accuse my mother of neglect? Eleanor placed a hand on her son's arm, the touch soft and protective. Gregory, dear, don't exhaust yourself with this. This woman clearly has no idea of the gravity of what she's done. She entered my house with ulterior motives. Perhaps she wanted to blackmail the family, create scandals, maybe even kidnap the girl. It wouldn't be the first time someone has tried to take advantage of a grieving family. Megan felt the floor completely disappear from under her feet. Kidnap? Blackmail? What are you talking about? I came here to work. I came here to earn my salary honestly. I have no ulterior motives whatsoever. Then why did you disobey the orders? Eleanor raised her voice for the first time, her expression turning hard. Why did you invade the second floor? Why did you approach Sophia without permission? Why are you trying to plant doubts about me in my son's head? Megan looked from Eleanor to Gregory, then back to Eleanor, and she saw it. She saw the perfect trap. She saw the manipulation orchestrated with surgical precision. She saw that anything she said now would be used against her. She was cornered. She was condemned before she even had a chance to properly defend herself. I want to see Sophia, Megan said, her voice firm despite the internal panic. I want her to tell you what really happened. She'll tell the truth. She'll defend me. Eleanor let out a short, humorless laugh. Do you really think I'm going to allow someone who just traumatized my granddaughter to have access to her again? You're delusional. Gregory ran a hand over his face, visibly exhausted. I'm going up to talk to Sophia. I'm going to see with my own eyes the state she's in, and then I'll decide what to do with you. He went up the stairs quickly, leaving Megan and Eleanor alone again in the room. The silence that followed was suffocating. Megan could feel Eleanor's gaze burning her skin, but she didn't turn. She kept her eyes fixed on the staircase, silently praying that Sophia would have the courage to tell the truth, that the girl would find the strength to contradict her grandmother, that justice somehow would prevail. But when Gregory came down the stairs 15 minutes later, Megan knew immediately that her prayers had not been answered. Gregory's face was even paler, his eyes even redder, and there was a mixture of pain and fury in his expression that made Megan's heart sink. She wouldn't talk to me, Gregory said, his voice hoarse. She's curled up in bed, trembling, crying softly. When I asked what happened, she just shook her head and asked me to leave. My daughter asked me to leave her own room. Do you have any idea what that means? Megan felt the tears finally escape. She's scared, she whispered. She's scared of your mother. She can't speak because she knows there will be consequences. Please, Mr. Adams, you have to believe me. I'm telling the truth. Enough. Gregory held up his hand, his voice like thunder. Enough lies. Enough baseless accusations. You're fired. I want you out of my house immediately. Megan took a step forward, desperate. Please, listen to me. Just listen to me for 5 minutes. Let me explain what really happened. I'm calling the police. Gregory took his cell phone from his pocket, his fingers already dialing. I'm going to file a report for invasion of privacy, harassment, and disturbing the peace of my family. You will answer legally for everything you've done. Megan's world collapsed. Police, a report, legal proceedings. It was all a nightmare and she couldn't wake up. No, please, don't do that. I didn't do anything wrong. I was only trying to help your daughter. I swear on everything holy, I was only trying to help. Eleanor approached Gregory, placing a hand on his arm again. Son, maybe it's better not to involve the police. Think of the scandal. Think of the exposure it would bring to Sophia. She's already too fragile. A lawsuit, police stations, depositions, all of that will only make the situation worse. Just let the young woman leave and be done with it. We'll never have to see her again. Megan looked at Eleanor, and for a brief second she saw something that made her shudder. She saw the cold intelligence of that woman calculating every move. Eleanor didn't want to involve the police, because she knew an investigation might reveal the truth. But at the same time, she was planting the seed of guilt in Gregory's mind, making it seem like she was being generous, magnanimous, protecting her granddaughter from more suffering. It was brilliant. It was cruel. It was terrible. Gregory hesitated, his finger still hovering over the phone screen. He considered his mother's words for long seconds, the conflict evident in his expression. Finally, he put the phone away. "You have 5 minutes to get off my property. If you are still here in 5 minutes, I will call the police and I will make sure you are arrested, understood?" Megan nodded, the tears now streaming freely. She picked up the backpack she had left in the corner of the room, the same backpack she was carrying when she arrived full of hope a few hours earlier, and walked toward the door. Before leaving, she turned one last time to Gregory. "You're going to regret this. It's not a threat. It's a fact. One day, you'll find out the truth, and you'll regret not listening to me when you had the chance. Get out." Gregory's voice was a dangerous whisper. "Get out now, before I change my mind." Megan crossed the immaculate garden, passed through the gate that closed automatically behind her, and finally collapsed on the sidewalk. She sat right there on the curb, hugging her backpack to her chest, and let the tears fall uncontrollably. People passed by, some looking with curiosity, others averting their gaze in embarrassment. But no one stopped, no one asked if she needed help, no one cared. When she finally managed to compose herself enough to stand up, Megan walked through the streets of the affluent neighborhood with no particular destination. Her mind was a whirlwind of confused thoughts. How had everything gone so wrong so quickly? How had a sincere attempt to help a child turned into such a serious accusation? How had Eleanor managed to manipulate the situation so perfectly? She stopped in a small park, sat on a bench under the shade of an old tree, and tried to think rationally. She needed a plan, she needed proof, she needed some way to reverse this absurd situation. But how? How could a single person, without resources, without connections, fight against a rich and powerful family? She took her phone from her pocket and called the only person she fully trusted. Julia, her best friend since they were teenagers. Julia answered on the third ring, her voice cheerful and carefree. "Hey Meg, how was the first day at the new job?" Megan tried to answer, but the words wouldn't come out. Just a choked sob, followed by another, and then another. Julia's tone immediately changed. "Meg, what happened? Are you okay? Where are you?" Between sobs and pauses to breathe, Megan told her everything. She told her about Eleanor's absurd rules, about Sophia's crying, about the attempt to help, about the trap that was set and the false accusation. She told her about the humiliation, the firing, the threat of a lawsuit. Julia listened in silence, and when Megan finished, she sighed deeply. "My God, Meg, this is serious, very serious. You need to file a complaint too. You need to go to a police station and tell your side of the story before they do." "But I have no proof, Ju. It's my word against theirs, and they have money, power, influence. Who's going to believe me?" "You have to try," Julia insisted. "You can't just accept this and move on. This woman is emotionally abusing a child, and you're the only witness. You have to fight." Megan took a deep breath, wiping the tears with the back of her hand. "You're right. I'll go to the precinct. I'll file my report. I'll do what's right, even if no one believes me." 2 hours later, Megan was sitting in an uncomfortable plastic chair at the nearest police precinct, waiting to be seen. The atmosphere was cold, impersonal, with peeling white walls and a smell of stale coffee in the air. When she was finally called, she explained the situation to a middle-aged detective who listened with a poorly concealed expression of boredom. "Let me see if—" "I understand," the detective said, drumming his fingers on the desk. "You were hired this morning. You disobeyed direct orders from your employer, you entered a private room, approached a child without authorization, and now you're here trying to file a complaint against the family that hired you?" Megan felt her blood boil. "It's not like that. I didn't enter anything. I heard a child crying and went to help. And when I got there, I saw that she was being emotionally neglected. The grandmother is using psychological control over the girl. She's denying her food, denying her affection, isolating the child. That's abuse." The detective sighed, clearly bored. Do you have any proof of these serious accusations? I have the testimony of the child herself. Sophia told me. She told me her grandmother blames her for her mother's death, that she uses emotional punishments, that her father is too distant to notice what's happening. And you think an 8-year-old child, traumatized by the recent loss of her mother, is a reliable witness? The detective raised an eyebrow. Do you think a judge is going to take that seriously? Megan closed her eyes, fighting back frustration. So what am I supposed to do? Just ignore what I saw, pretend nothing happened? Look, Miss Carter, the detective leaned forward, his tone becoming more condescending. I understand you think you were doing the right thing, but the truth is you were fired on your first day for disobeying orders. You have no history with this family, no concrete proof of your accusations, and you're essentially asking us to investigate a respectable family based solely on your word. That's not enough. If you want, I can file a report, but I'll tell you right now it probably won't go anywhere. Megan felt the tears return. Please, just file it. Just let it be documented that I tried to do the right thing. The detective sighed again, took a form, and began to fill it out with lazy movements. 15 minutes later, Megan left the precinct with a copy of the police report in her hand. A piece of paper that she knew would probably be filed away and forgotten in a matter of days. The following days were a blur of despair and survival. Megan returned to the small apartment she shared with 2 other people in the Bronx, only to find that the landlady was demanding immediate payment of the overdue rent. Without the salary from the job she lost on the first day, Megan had no way to pay. She tried to negotiate, to beg for more time, but the owner was inflexible. 1 week. You have 1 week to pay or get out. Megan spent the next few days desperately looking for a job. She handed out resumes in dozens of places, went on interviews. She would have taken anything. But there was always something wrong. Either they wanted references she didn't have, or the salary wasn't enough to cover basic expenses, or they simply didn't hire her without giving an explanation. Julia tried to help. She offered to lend her money, offered her own sofa for Megan to sleep on, offered to use her connections to find work. But Megan, too proud to accept charity, refused it all. I'll manage on my own, she insisted. I'll find a way. But she didn't. When the week was up, Megan found herself on the street, literally. She packed her few clothes and belongings into a backpack, said goodbye to her roommates, and walked the streets of New York without knowing where to go. The first night sleeping rough was the hardest. Megan found a bench in a relatively safe park, lay down curled up, hugging her backpack, and tried to sleep. But fear wouldn't let her. The fear of being robbed, the fear of being attacked, the fear of waking up to find her life had become an irreversible nightmare. She cried softly until exhaustion finally won, and she slept a few fitful hours. The days dragged on in a brutal routine of survival. Megan would wake up early, wash her face in public restrooms, look for work during the day, and take any temporary job she could get. She helped people move, handed out flyers, did odd jobs at street fairs. She earned little, just enough to eat 1 meal a day and save a few dollars. At night, she would return to the same park, to the same bench, and try to sleep. She lost weight quickly. Her clothes started to hang loose, the dark circles under her eyes deepened, and there was a look of permanent exhaustion in her eyes. People on the street looked at her with a mixture of pity and contempt, but no one offered real help. Just occasional coins, sometimes a piece of bread, sometimes an embarrassed smile before they hurried away. Julia tried to find her several times, but Megan had turned off her phone to save the battery and the little credit she had left. She didn't want to worry her friend. She didn't want to be a burden. She preferred to suffer alone, in silence, until she found a way to get back on her feet. And it was during one of those cold nights, huddled on the park bench, with a thin sweater trying to protect her from the chilly July wind, that Megan looked up at the starry sky and wondered if it was worth continuing to fight. She wondered if anyone would care if she just gave up. She wondered if Sophia was okay, if the girl thought of her, if she regretted not having the courage to tell the truth. But then, amidst the darkness and despair, a spark of anger ignited within her. Anger at Eleanor, anger at Gregory, anger at the injustice, and that anger was enough to keep her alive, to make her get up the next day, wash her face in the park, fountain, and go out again to look for work. Because giving up would be letting Eleanor win. It would be accepting the injustice. And Megan, even broken, even shattered, was not ready to do that. Meanwhile, in the silent mansion on the Upper East Side, Sophia was lying in bed, staring at the ceiling in the dark. She thought about Megan, the only person who had tried to help her, the only person who had cared about her suffering, and she felt an overwhelming weight of guilt in her chest. She had seen the nanny being accused. She had heard the shouting. She had felt the desperation in Megan's voice as she pleaded to be heard, and she had done nothing. She hadn't defended her. She hadn't told the truth, because she was scared. Scared of her grandmother, scared of the consequences, scared of everything. And now, alone in the dark, Sophia cried softly, wondering if Megan was okay, if she could ever forgive her, if there would be a second chance to tell the truth. Because even at just 8 years old, Sophia knew one thing with absolute certainty. She had made a terrible mistake, and that mistake might never be undone. 3 weeks had passed since that fateful day at the Adams mansion, 3 weeks that felt like 3 years in Megan's life, who now knew every corner of that park in downtown Manhattan as if it were her own home. She had managed to get a temporary job as a kitchen helper in a small restaurant in the neighborhood, earning just enough to eat and save a few dollars. The owner, a kind-hearted Italian man named Giuseppe, had noticed her situation and offered her the job without asking too many questions. It was hard work, with long hours and minimum wage, but it was dignified. It was a new beginning. Megan washed dishes, peeled vegetables, and cleaned the kitchen floor after everyone had gone home. She would return to the park late at night, exhausted, her hands rough from scrubbing pots, but with a small sense of purpose. She was building something again, slowly, brick by brick, but she was building. Julia had finally found her a week earlier, after days of searching the streets. When she saw her sitting on that bench, thin, pale, with worn-out clothes, Julia had broken down in tears. She offered help again, offered her home, offered money, and this time Megan accepted. Not everything, but she accepted sleeping on her friend's couch until she could save enough to rent a room. She accepted some borrowed clothes. She accepted a shoulder to cry on when the pain became unbearable. But even while rebuilding her life piece by piece, Megan couldn't stop thinking about Sophia. Every night, before falling asleep, she wondered if the girl was okay, if she was still suffering, if she thought of her, if she had regrets. And every night she felt the same tightness in her chest, the same helplessness, the same anger at the injustice. Meanwhile, in the silent mansion, Sophia's life was getting worse day by day. Without Megan's presence, however brief, the girl had lost the only thread of hope that kept her fighting. Eleanor, now completely unsupervised and emboldened by her victory over the nanny, had intensified her control. Sophia's meals became increasingly scarce, always accompanied by comments about discipline and self-control. The girl was forced to spend hours sitting in silence in her room, without toys, without books, just thinking about her supposed failings. And Gregory, diving deeper and deeper into his work as a way to escape the pain, barely saw his daughter. Sophia was losing weight visibly. Her school uniforms became too loose, the bones in her arms showed under her pale skin, and there was a vacant look in her eyes that worried even her classmates. At school, teachers began to notice. The once participative and cheerful girl now sat at the back of the class, quiet, distant, as if she were in another world. During recess, she didn't play. She just sat in a corner, hugging her knees, staring into space. It was her English teacher, Beatrice Sanders, who first raised the red flag. She asked Sophia to talk after class, asked if everything was okay at home, if she needed help. Sophia just shook her head and mumbled that everything was fine. But Beatrice didn't believe her. There was something deeply wrong there. She spoke with the school counselor, who suggested calling the family for a meeting. Eleanor attended the meeting, elegant as always, with a polite smile and a ready explanation for every concern raised. Sophia was going through a difficult grieving process, she explained in a controlled voice. She was undergoing therapy at home, being closely monitored, receiving all the necessary support. The loss of her mother had been devastating, but the family was doing everything possible to help her overcome it. It was just a phase. It would soon pass. The teachers were partially convinced. After all, Eleanor was eloquent, confident, and seemed genuinely concerned about her granddaughter. But Beatrice kept a close eye on Sophia. And when, 2 weeks later, the girl fainted during gym class, Beatrice knew her suspicions were correct. An ambulance was called immediately. Sophia was taken to the nearest hospital, and Eleanor was contacted by the school. When she arrived at the hospital, she found her granddaughter lying on a gurney receiving an IV drip, with doctors and nurses around her running tests. The initial diagnosis was clear: severe malnutrition, dehydration, and profound anemia. An 8-year-old child should not be in that condition. The attending physician, Dr. Henry Martin, pulled Eleanor aside for a private conversation in the hallway. "Mrs. Adams, your granddaughter's situation is serious. She is severely underweight for her age. The tests show significant nutritional deficiencies. I have to ask, has Sophia been eating properly at home?" Eleanor maintained her composure. "Of course, doctor. I offer balanced meals 3 times a day, but Sophia has been difficult lately. She refuses food, says she's not hungry. It's the grief, you know how it is. I'm doing my best, but she simply won't eat." Dr. Martin looked into Eleanor's eyes for a long moment. There was something in her answer that didn't ring true. "I'm going to need to keep Sophia hospitalized for a few days for observation and treatment, and I will be requesting an evaluation from social services. It's standard procedure in cases of child malnutrition." Eleanor felt a chill run down her spine, but she kept her expression calm. "Of course, doctor. Do whatever is necessary for my granddaughter's health." That night, while Sophia slept in the hospital room, a nurse named Carla Stevens noticed something that made her pause. While changing the dressing on an IV line in the girl's arm, she saw small marks on the skin. They weren't recent wounds, but old, thin scars scattered across her arms and neck. Carla frowned. She had seen marks like that before, in other cases. She decided to discreetly take photos and include them in the medical chart. The next day, the hospital's social worker, Paula Fisher, came to talk to Sophia. She was a middle-aged woman with a kind expression and a soft voice that immediately put children at ease. She sat beside the bed and smiled. "Hi, Sophia. My name is Paula. I'm a social worker here at the hospital. I wanted to chat with you for a bit. Is that okay? You don't have to be afraid. I'm just here to help you." Sophia looked at Paula with large, frightened eyes. She said nothing, just nodded slightly. "Tell me, how have you been feeling at home? Are you happy? Are you well taken care of?" Sophia bit her lower lip, her eyes filling with tears. She didn't know what to say. She wanted to scream that no, she wasn't okay, that she needed help. But she was scared. Scared of her grandmother, scared of the consequences, scared that no one would believe her, just as they hadn't believed Megan. "Everything's fine," she finally murmured, her voice barely audible. Paula noticed the hesitation. "Sophia, I want you to know that you can trust me. Everything you tell me will stay between us. If something is wrong, if someone is hurting you or making you feel bad, you can tell me. I will protect you." Tears began to stream down Sophia's face. She wanted to speak. God, how she wanted to speak. But the words were stuck in her throat, suffocated by fear. Paula waited patiently, holding the girl's small hand, transmitting calm and security through her touch. It was then that Sophia remembered. She remembered Megan, the only person who had tried to save her, the only person who had truly cared. And she remembered how Megan had been punished for trying to do the right thing. She remembered the shouting, the accusation, the desperation in the nanny's voice. And she felt a wave of guilt so strong it almost choked her. "I did something really bad," Sophia whispered, her voice trembling. "There was a lady who tried to help me. She was kind to me. And I didn't defend her. I let Grandma lie. I let everyone think she had done something bad, and she hadn't. She just wanted to help me." Paula leaned forward, her attention fully focused. "What lady, Sophia? What are you talking about?" And then, between sobs and pauses to breathe, Sophia told her everything. she told. Her about Megan, about the day the nanny came upstairs and found her crying, about how Megan had been kind, caring, and had promised to help. She told her how her grandmother had created a lie, accused Megan of terrible things, and made her father believe it. She told her how Megan had been fired, humiliated, threatened, and she told her how she, out of fear, hadn't had the courage to tell the truth. Paula listened to it all in silence, her heart aching. When Sophia finished, she discreetly wiped her own tears and took a deep breath. Sophia, you were very brave to tell me this, very brave indeed. And I want you to know something. It's not too late to tell the truth. It's never too late. But no one will believe me, Sophia sobbed. No one believed Megan. Why will they believe me? Because this time you have someone on your side, Paula said firmly. This time you're not alone. I'm going to help you. But I need you to tell me a few more things. Has your grandmother been hurting you, denying you food, treating you badly? Sophia hesitated for just a second before nodding. Tell me everything. But the words wouldn't come. It was too hard. It hurt too much. Paula noticed and had an idea. How about we record a video, you telling everything, in your own words? That way your father can see it. He can hear you, and there will be no way for him to doubt it. Would you feel comfortable doing that? Sophia wiped her tears and nodded. Yes, I want to. I have to. Megan needs to know the truth. Dad needs to know the truth. Everyone needs to know. Paula took out her phone and positioned it to film Sophia clearly. She pressed the record button and signaled for the girl to begin, and Sophia, her voice trembling but determined, began to speak. My name is Sophia Adams. I'm 8 years old, and I need to tell the truth about what happened to Megan. She was the nanny my dad hired. She didn't do anything wrong. She just tried to help me when she saw me crying. My grandma lied. She said Megan had scared me, had done bad things. But it's not true. Grandma doesn't like me. She says it's my fault Mom is gone. She makes me go hungry. She makes me stay locked in my room. She says mean things to me every day, and Dad doesn't see it. He works so much and he doesn't see. But Megan saw, and when she tried to help, Grandma lied and everyone believed her. I didn't defend Megan because I was scared, but now I want to fix it. I need to fix it. Megan, if you're watching this, I'm sorry. I'm sorry I wasn't brave before. You were the only person who really cared about me, and I thank you for that. Dad, please believe me. This time. Please. Sophia began to cry intensely, and Paula stopped the recording. She hugged the girl, whispering words of comfort, promising that everything would be okay. And for the first time in months, Sophia felt a little bit of hope. Paula immediately contacted the hospital administration and Child Protective Services. An emergency meeting was called. The video was presented, Sophia's medical history was reviewed, and the evidence was considered sufficient to open a formal investigation. Gregory was called to the hospital urgently. When Gregory arrived, still wearing his work suit, he found a room full of serious professionals waiting for him. Dr. Martin, Paula, representatives from Child Protective Services, and even a public defender. He felt his stomach churn. What's going on? Where is my daughter? Your daughter is fine, Mr. Adams, Paula said in a firm voice. But we need to discuss some very serious matters that have come to light. Please have a seat. Gregory sat, his hands trembling slightly. Paula picked up a tablet and turned the screen toward him. Before we show you this, I need you to be prepared. What you are about to see is a spontaneous testimony from your daughter, she asked. Does to record it. She wants you to know the truth. And then Paula pressed play. And Gregory watched. He watched his daughter, pale, thin, her eyes red from crying, telling a story that shattered his heart into a million pieces. With every word, every revelation, every confession, Gregory felt his world collapse around him. His mother, his own mother, had done all of that, and he hadn't seen, hadn't noticed. He had been so lost in his own pain that he had let his daughter suffer alone. And Megan, the nanny he had fired, humiliated, threatened, she was right. She had been right from the very beginning, And he hadn't listened to her. He had chosen to believe his mother. He had chosen the easy path, and he had condemned an innocent woman. When the video ended, Gregory was crying. Not silent tears, but loud, uncontrollable sobs laden with guilt and regret. "My God," he whispered between tears, "my God, what have I done?" "Mr. Adams," Paula said firmly, "we need to take immediate action. Your daughter cannot return home under your mother's supervision. Child Protective Services will be opening a full investigation, and we strongly suggest you seek legal counsel for matters of custody and a possible lawsuit against your mother." Gregory nodded, still in shock. "I want to see my daughter. Please let me see her." He was taken to the room where Sophia was. When the girl saw him enter, she instinctively shrank back, expecting another disappointment. But Gregory ran to her, fell to his knees beside the bed, and hugged her as if his life depended on it. "Forgive me, Sophia. Forgive me, my love. Forgive me for not seeing. Forgive me for not believing you. Forgive me for letting all of this happen. I've been a horrible father, but that's going to change. I swear that's going to change. I will never let anyone hurt you again. Never again." Sophia clung to her father, crying, and for the first time in months, she felt that maybe, just maybe, things could get better. "Dad," she whispered against his shoulder, "we need to find Megan. We need to apologize to her. She didn't deserve what we did." "I know, my love, I know, and I will find her. I will do everything in my power to fix the mistake I made." In the next 24 hours, everything happened very quickly. Eleanor was contacted and informed that she was being investigated for emotional neglect and psychological abuse. She was ordered to stay away from Sophia. Gregory immediately kicked her out of his house, changed the locks, and made it clear she would never be welcome again. He hired the best lawyers he could find and initiated legal proceedings against his own mother. And the story leaked to the press. An investigative journalist from a major news portal got information about the case and published a detailed report. Sophia's video, with Gregory's permission and judicial authorization, was made public. And the entire country stopped to watch. The commotion was immediate and overwhelming. Thousands of comments, millions of shares, collective outrage, and in the midst of it all, the name Megan Carter resurfaced, the unjustly accused Nanny, the woman who had tried to save a child and was destroyed for it. Reports began to investigate her whereabouts. They wanted to hear from her. They wanted to apologize. They wanted justice. Megan was at Giuseppe's restaurant, washing dishes as usual, when Julia called frantically. Meg, you have to see the news. You have to see what's happening. The truth is out. Everyone knows now you were right." Megan dropped the sponge with trembling hands. What? What are you talking about?" Julia sent the link to the report. Megan opened it with trembling fingers and began to read. And then she saw the video. She saw Sophia, the girl she couldn't forget, telling the world the truth. And she collapsed right there, in the middle of the restaurant kitchen, crying her eyes out. Not from sadness, but from relief, from validation, from justice finally being served. Giuseppe ran to her, concerned. "Megan, what is it? Are you okay?" And, between tears and sobs, Megan smiled. "Yes, Giuseppe, it's okay. Finally, everything is okay." Megan couldn't work that day. After seeing Sophia's video and reading the dozens of reports that had surfaced like an avalanche on the internet, she simply wasn't in the emotional state to hold a sponge or wash another plate. Giuseppe, understanding as always, let her go with a gentle pat on the shoulder and an encouraging smile. "Go, ragazza. Go sort out your life. Your job will be here when you get back." Megan left the restaurant still dazed, her phone vibrating incessantly with messages, calls, notifications. Journalists wanted to interview her. Strangers sent messages of support. Old acquaintances resurfaced, apologizing for having doubted her. It was overwhelming. It was liberating. It was frightening. Julia picked her up half an hour later, driving like a madwoman through the streets of New York to the apartment. The two sat on the couch and watched the news on television together. Every channel was covering the story. The case of Sophia Adams and the nanny Megan Carter had become the topic of the moment. Experts debated emotional neglect, psychologists talked about childhood trauma, lawyers discussed the legal implications. And then, in the midst of all the coverage, Megan's phone rang. It was an unknown number. She hesitated, her heart pounding, but she answered. "Hello? Megan Carter." The voice on the other end was male, deep, heavy with restrained emotion. "It's Gregory Adams." Megan was paralyzed. She didn't know what to say. She didn't know if she wanted to speak to the man who had humiliated her, destroyed her life, chosen to believe his mother's lies. But at the same time, there was something in his voice, something broken, something genuinely repentant. "I know I have no right to call you," Gregory continued, his voice faltering slightly. "I know I have no right to ask for anything, but I need to see you. I need to look you in the eyes and apologize. And Sophia is desperate to see you. She wants to ask for your forgiveness. She needs to know you're okay." Megan felt the tears return. "How is she?" "She's better, still in the hospital, but better. The doctors said that with proper nutrition and psychological support, she'll make a full recovery. But emotionally, she's destroyed by guilt. Guilt for not defending you that day. Guilt for letting all of that happen to you. She won't stop crying and asking to see you." Megan wiped the tears with the back of her hand. "Where are you?" "St. Luke's Hospital, on the Upper West Side. Room 312. Megan, please. I know I don't deserve it, but please come. Not for me. For her. For Sophia." Megan took a deep breath. "I'll be there. I'm on my way." She hung up the phone and looked at Julia, who was already on her feet, grabbing the car keys. "Let's go. I'll drive you." The drive to the hospital was silent. Megan looked out the window, watching the city pass in a blur, her heart beating erratically. She was nervous, she was angry, she was anxious, she was confused. So many conflicting emotions, she didn't know which one predominated. But above all, she was worried about Sophia. She wanted to see with her own eyes that the girl was okay. She wanted to hug her and tell her everything would be all right. When they arrived at the hospital, Megan went up alone. Julia waited in the lobby, giving her space for that moment. Megan walked through the white corridors, the smell of antiseptic in the air, until she found room 312. She stopped in front of the door, took 3 deep breaths, and knocked lightly. The door opened, and Gregory was there. In person, he looked even more devastated than he sounded on the phone. He had deep, dark circles, a pale face, and eyes red from crying. He was wearing the same wrinkled clothes from the day before, as if he hadn't been home. When he saw Megan, his face contorted into an expression of pain mixed with relief. "Megan, you came. Thank you so much for coming." Megan didn't answer. She just looked past him into the room where she saw Sophia sitting on the hospital bed. The girl was thinner than Megan remembered, her little face pale, but her eyes were fixed on the door, waiting. When their gazes met, Sophia started to cry. "Megan!" The girl tried to get out of bed, but the IV lines held her back. "Megan, you're here! You're okay!" Megan quickly entered the room, going straight to Sophia. She knelt beside the bed and hugged the girl as carefully as she could, as if holding something extremely fragile and precious. Sophia clung to her, sobbing, repeating apologies between her tears. "Forgive me, Megan. Forgive me for not telling the truth. Forgive me for letting that happen to you. I was a coward. I was a horrible person. You tried to help me and I did nothing. Shh, Megan gently stroked the girl's hair. It's okay, Sophia. None of this is your fault. You were just a scared little girl. You weren't obligated to face such a difficult situation alone. The important thing is that now you were brave. You told the truth. And because of that, everything is going to be okay. But you suffered so much because of me, Sophia sobbed. You lost everything, and it was all my fault. It wasn't your fault, Megan said firmly, holding the girl's face between her hands and looking into her eyes. It was your grandmother's fault. It was the fault of the adults who didn't protect you like they should have. But it wasn't yours. It was never yours. And I don't blame you for anything. Do you understand? Nothing. Sophia nodded, tears still streaming, but there was a visible relief on her face. I thought about you so much. Every day. I wondered if you were okay, if you had a place to sleep, if you had food to eat. I prayed every night that you were okay. Megan smiled through her own tears. I thought about you every day too, sweetie. I wondered if you were suffering, if you were alone, if you needed me. And now I'm here. And I'm going to tell you something. I'm never going to leave you alone again. I promise. Gregory, who had remained silent by the door, finally approached. His expression was that of a man completely destroyed by guilt. Megan, I don't even know where to begin. What I did to you was unforgivable. I accused you without listening to you. I trusted my mother's words without question. I fired you, humiliated you, threatened you. I destroyed your life based on lies. And there are not enough words to express how much I regret it, how sorry I am. Megan stood up slowly, still holding Sophia's hand. She looked at Gregory, and for a moment she considered letting all her anger out. She considered screaming, accusing, making him feel a fraction of the pain she had felt. But then she looked at Sophia, at the girl's hopeful little face, and realized that anger wouldn't solve anything. It wouldn't bring back the lost time. It wouldn't erase the suffering. It would only perpetuate the cycle of pain. Mr. Adams, Megan said calmly, what happened was terrible. Yes, I suffered. A lot. I lost my home, my job, my dignity. I slept on the street. I went hungry. I went through things no one should ever have to go through. But looking back now, I realized the person who suffered the most was Sophia. She was the biggest victim in all of this, and now she needs support, she needs love, she needs to be the priority. So no, I can't say I completely forgive you. It still hurts too much. But I can say that I won't let my pain stop Sophia from having the family she deserves. Gregory bowed his head, tears now streaming freely. You are a better person than I will ever be. Even after everything, you still think about protecting my daughter. I don't deserve your understanding, but I promise I will spend the rest of my life trying to fix what I broke. I will make sure you are compensated for everything. I'll pay your bills, your tuition if you want to go back to school. I'll help you rebuild your life. It's the least I can do. I don't want charity, Megan said firmly. I want dignity. I want a fair job if you can offer me one. I want to be able to look in the mirror and know that I'm rebuilding my life with my own 2 hands, and I want to be able to be there for Sophia if she wants me to. I do. Sophia squeezed Megan's hand. I really do. Please, Megan, stay close. Don't go away again. Megan smiled and kissed the girl's forehead. I won't, sweetie. I promise. The following days were intense. Megan gave interviews to various media outlets, always with dignity and without exaggeration, telling her side of the story honestly and directly. The public was deeply moved by her story. Support campaigns emerged. People offered donations, jobs, housing. Megan accepted help, but cautiously, choosing only what she truly needed. Gregory kept his word. He offered Megan a job at his business consulting firm, not as a favor, but as a regular employee with a fair salary and full benefits. Megan accepted, not because she specifically needed him, but because she wanted to prove she was capable. And she did. She was dedicated, competent, intelligent. She quickly earned the respect of her colleagues. Meanwhile, the case against Eleanor Adams moved forward. The woman had been formally charged with emotional neglect, psychological abuse, and filing a false report. During the hearings, witnesses were heard. Sophia's teachers reported changes in the girl's behavior. Doctors presented reports on malnutrition. Sophia's video was presented as key evidence. Eleanor, represented by expensive lawyers, tried to defend herself. She claimed she was just trying to raise her granddaughter with discipline, that Megan had exaggerated the situation, that it was all a misunderstanding. But the evidence was overwhelming. And when Sophia, accompanied by psychologists, gave a detailed testimony to the judge, Eleanor had no arguments left. The trial attracted national attention. The courtroom was packed with journalists, onlookers, and supporters of Megan. When it was time for the sentencing, the judge was clear and direct. Considering the gravity of the acts, the coldness with which they were committed, and the devastating impact on the life of a vulnerable child and an innocent woman, I sentence the defendant, Eleanor Adams, to 5 years in prison for continued psychological abuse, in addition to substantial compensation to the victims and a permanent restraining order prohibiting any contact with the minor, Sophia Adams. There was applause in the courtroom. Eleanor was led away in handcuffs, showing no remorse or regret. Megan, sitting next to Gregory, with Sophia holding her hand, felt a huge weight lift from her shoulders. Justice had been served, finally. The following months were about rebuilding. Sophia began intensive therapy, twice a week, with a psychologist specializing in childhood trauma. Slowly, she regained her joy, her smile, her desire to play. She started to gain weight again. She made friends at school again. She became a child again. Gregory also went to therapy. He needed to process the guilt, the grief for his wife, the betrayal by his own mother. Slowly, he learned to be the father Sophia needed. He stopped working late. He started having dinner with his daughter every day. He took her to the park on weekends. He read her stories before bed. He rebuilt, brick by brick, the relationship that had been lost, and Megan was present for all of it. Not as a nanny, but as part of the family. She had dinner with them frequently. She helped Sophia with her homework. She listened to stories from school. She was a confidant, a friend, a mother figure without trying to replace the mother Sophia had lost. Over time, something unexpected began to happen. Gregory and Megan started to get to know each other for real. They would talk for hours after Sophia went to bed. They shared stories, fears, dreams. They laughed together. They cried together. And without realizing it, without planning it, they began to develop feelings for each other. It was Gregory who noticed it first. He was making coffee one Saturday morning, Sophia still asleep, when Megan arrived for the breakfast they had planned. She walked in laughing about something she had seen on the street, her hair down for the first time in weeks, wearing a simple floral dress, and Gregory felt his heart ache. Not with guilt or sadness, but with something different. Something he hadn't felt in a long time. Genuine affection, admiration, a desire to be close. Megan felt it too. She noticed how Gregory's gaze had changed, how he paid attention to small details, how he smiled differently when she entered the room, and it scared her. Was it right? Was it appropriate to develop feelings for the man who had played a part in the destruction of her life, even if indirectly? They talked about it one night after putting Sophia to bed. Sitting on the living room sofa, with cups of tea in their hands, they finally addressed the elephant in the room. "Megan," Gregory began, his voice hesitant, "I don't know if it's right for me to feel what I'm feeling. I don't know if I have the right after everything. But I have to be honest with you. These past few months have made me realize how incredible you are. Your strength, your kindness, your capacity to forgive. I've developed feelings for you, and I don't know what to do with them." Megan looked down at her cup, her heart racing. "Me too," she admitted softly. "I feel something too, and I also don't know if it's right. Part of me still holds a grudge, still remembers the pain. But another part sees the man you are now, sees the dedicated father, sees the person who strives every day to be better. And that part wants to give it a chance." Gregory put his cup on the table and turned to her. "I won't pressure you. I won't rush you. We can go at your pace. But I want you to know that you've changed my life. You and Sophia are the two most important people to me. And if one day you decide you can forgive me completely, that you can trust me again, I promise I will spend the rest of my life proving you made the right choice." Megan smiled, her eyes welling up. "Let's take it slow, one day at a time, and we'll see where it takes us." And they took it slow. Dinners that became dates. Outings with Sophia that became family moments. Stolen kisses when the girl wasn't looking. Hugs that lasted longer than necessary. A romance born from the ashes, built on honesty, respect, and mutual healing. Sophia noticed, of course. Children always notice. And she was thrilled. "Are we going to be a real family?" she asked one night, her eyes shining with hope. "If you want to be," Megan replied, stroking the girl's face. if you feel comfortable with it. I do, Sophia hugged Megan tightly. I always have. Since the first day I saw you. I knew you were special. I knew you were going to save us. A year after the fateful day Megan had first entered that mansion, Gregory proposed. It wasn't extravagant or theatrical. It was simple, intimate, perfect. During a picnic in the park with Sophia, he took a small box from his pocket and knelt before Megan. Sophia held up a sign she had made herself, with colourful letters and drawings of flowers that read, "Megan, will you stay with us forever?" Megan looked from Gregory to Sophia, then back to Gregory, and burst into happy tears. Yes, 1,000 times yes. The wedding was small, just close friends and family who truly mattered. Julia was the maid of honor. Sophia was the flower girl, wearing a light pink dress and carrying the rings with adorable seriousness. When Megan and Gregory exchanged vows, promising to love, respect, and protect each other, there wasn't a dry eye in the small chapel. And when the officiant declared them husband and wife, Sophia ran to them and hugged them, creating a group hug that perfectly symbolized what they had become, a family. Not perfect, not without scars, but real. Built on forgiveness, love, and a second chance none of them thought they would have. The following years were filled with genuine happiness. Megan officially became Sophia's mother through adoption. Gregory and Megan had another child, a boy whom Sophia adored from the first moment. The family grew, prospered, healed. Megan never forgot the difficult days, the nights in the park, the hunger, the despair. But she transformed that pain into purpose. She created an NGO to help vulnerable women, offering temporary shelter, job training, and psychological support. The organization grew, helped hundreds of people, and became a national reference. Sophia grew up strong, healthy, and happy. She became a brilliant teenager, dedicated to her studies and passionate about helping other children going through difficult situations. She volunteered at her mother's NGO, shared her story to inspire others, and carried with her the certainty that even in the darkest situations, there is always hope. Gregory became the father and husband he always should have been. Present, attentive, loving. The guilt never completely disappeared, but he learned to live with it, transforming it into motivation to be better every day. And Megan, the woman who had been unjustly destroyed, who had lost everything, who had slept on the streets and gone hungry, became a symbol of resilience. She proved that justice, even when it's delayed, can prevail. She proved that love can be born from even the most unlikely circumstances. She proved that new beginnings are possible, no matter how far you've fallen. One quiet evening, years after everything, Megan was on the porch of her house watching Gregory play with their children in the garden. Sophia, now 15, was chasing her younger brother, both of them laughing loudly. The scene was one of pure, simple happiness. The scene she never imagined she would have. Julia, sitting beside her with a cup of tea, broke the silence. "Who would have thought, huh? Look where you are, look what you've built." Megan smiled, her eyes misty with gratitude. "Who would have thought? Sometimes it still feels like a dream. Sometimes I still wake up thinking I'm on that park bench." "But you're not," Julia said firmly. "You fought, you survived, you won, and you built something beautiful. From all that pain." Megan nodded, wiping away a tear that escaped. Justice prevailed, the truth saved lives, and love rebuilt everything. Gregory looked up at the porch and waved, a wide smile on his face. Sophia looked up too and shouted, "Mom, come play with us." Megan stood up, her heart overflowing with love. "I'm coming." And she ran down the steps, greeted with hugs and laughter, surrounded by the people she loved, in the life she had always deserved. The story of the nanny who tried to save a child and ended up saving herself had reached its happy ending, an ending that proved that even in the deepest darkness, there is always a light waiting to shine. There is always love waiting to heal. There is always hope waiting to be reborn. End of story. Dear listeners, we hope that the story of Megan, Gregory, and Sophia has deeply touched your hearts. If you were moved by this journey of pain, justice, and rebuilding, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and tell us in the comments which moment marked you the most. Every day we bring intense stories like this one, which reveal the strength of the human spirit, the importance of truth and the transformative power of love. Stories that remind us that it's never too late to start over, that justice can prevail, and that forgiveness has the power to heal even the deepest wounds. We look forward to seeing you in the next episode with another story that will stir your emotions and make you reflect on life. See you soon.